They met too late, but felt everything. Before we get deep into the story, please let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Hit subscribe if you're hooked in and ready to enjoy this story, because tomorrow I have another beautiful story to share with you and I don't want you to miss it for anything. Now, let's get into the story. The private airstrip sat like a scar across the desert floor, illuminated only by scattered runway lights that flickered against the darkness. Jeremy arrived first, his black sedan cutting through the night with headlights dimmed. He killed the engine 50 yards from the meeting point and waited, watching the empty tarmac through his rearview mirror. 3 minutes later, another set of headlights appeared. He stepped out into the cold air, his breath forming small clouds that dissolved into nothing. The wind carried the scent of aviation fuel and sage. Behind him, he heard a car door close, soft, deliberate. "Don't turn around," Christine's voice came from the darkness, closer than he expected. Jeremy froze, his hand halfway to his jacket pocket. Wasn't planning to. They stood back to back, two silhouettes separated by inches and everything else. The position was tactical. Each could monitor their own approach, watch for complications, maintain the facade of professional distance. But Jeremy could feel the heat radiating from her body, could smell her perfume cutting through the desert air, something expensive and understated like everything else about her. "You got my message," she said. "I got a lot of things tonight. Threats, warnings, an envelope with photos I'm supposed to pretend don't exist." He kept his voice level, his eyes scanning the horizon. "Which one are we talking about?" "The one where I said we need to talk." "We're talking." A pause. The wind picked up, rattling a loose chain somewhere on the fence line. Jeremy felt Christine shift her weight, felt the fabric of her coat brush against his. "They know," Christine said quietly. "About Geneva, about the accounts." His jaw tightened. "How much?" "Enough to be dangerous, not enough to be certain." "Then we stick to the plan." "The plan assumes we have time." Her voice carried something he'd never heard before, not quite fear, but its sophisticated cousin, concern. "Marcus is getting impatient. He's asking questions." "Let him ask." "Jeremy!" "What do you want me to say, Christine?" He kept his gaze fixed forward, watching shadows that might or might not be threats. "That I'm scared? That I wish we'd never started this? That standing here with you pretending we're strangers is killing me?" The silence stretched between them like a wire pulled taut. "We are strangers," she said finally. "That's what keeps us alive." "Is it?" He almost turned then, almost broke protocol just to see her face. "Because from where I'm standing, being strangers is what's killing us both, slowly." Another beat of silence. Then, "There's a flight leaving for Sao Paulo in 40 minutes. 1 passenger, cash purchase. You or me?" "It matters." It mattered more than anything. But Jeremy didn't say that. Instead, he reached into his pocket slowly, pulled out a small envelope and held it behind his back. He felt her fingers brush his as she took it. "Coordinates for when this is over." "If this is over." "When, Christine?" He heard her footsteps retreat across the tarmac, heard the car door, the engine. He didn't turn around, not until her taillights disappeared into the desert darkness, leaving him alone with the wind and the weight of everything they'd left unsaid. The conference room was sterile, all glass and chrome, designed for transactions that required no warmth. Christine sat across from Jeremy, a mahogany table between them like a demilitarized zone. Her lawyer flanked her left, his accountant sat to his right. Witnesses to a performance neither wanted to give. "The merger terms are straightforward," Christine said, sliding a folder across the table. Her fingers didn't tremble. Years of practice. 60-40 split on all foreign holdings. Clean integration of the European portfolios. Jeremy opened the folder without looking at her. "The liquidation timeline seems aggressive. The market won't wait for sentiment." "I'm not talking about sentiment. I'm talking about due diligence." He met her eyes then, just for a second, long enough to see the hairline fracture in her composure. We need time to assess the full scope of entanglements. Her jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. Everything is disclosed. Page 7, subsection C. Page 7 covers assets. He leaned back, his tone carefully neutral. I'm more concerned about liabilities, the kind that don't show up on balance sheets. The lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Christine's gaze never wavered. All material liabilities have been addressed, she said, unless you're referring to something specific. I'm referring to exposure, risk management. What happens when two entities merge and someone starts asking questions about overlap, about prior collaborations? Then we refer them to the non-disclosure agreements, Section 12. She tapped the folder. Everything is protected. Everything is sealed. Paper protection. It's held before. That was before. He caught himself, reshuffled the papers in front of him. Before market conditions changed. Christine's knuckles whitened around her pen. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, controlled. The conditions were always going to change. We knew that going in. The question is whether we honor our commitments or let external pressures dictate our decisions. I've never broken a contract, Christine. Then why does it feel like you're trying to renegotiate? The question hung in the air between them. Jeremy's accountant cleared his throat, pretended to study a footnote. The lawyer checked her watch. I'm not renegotiating, Jeremy said finally. I'm asking if you've considered the human cost of liquidation, what we lose when we dissolve the partnership. Christine closed her folder with a soft snap. 48 hours for your signature. After that, the offer expires. She walked out without looking back, leaving Jeremy sitting alone in the conference room, surrounded by contracts that protected everything except what mattered most.
Paris, 10 years ago. The rain hammered against the hotel window like it was trying to break through. Jeremy stood with his forehead pressed to the glass, watching the Seine overflow its banks, watching the city drown in the kind of storm that rewrote maps. "We could stay," Christine said from the bed behind him. He closed his eyes. "You don't mean that." "I do." The sheets rustled as she moved. "We could walk away, both of us, tonight. They'd never find us if we didn't want to be found." "They'd find us." He turned to face her. She sat cross-legged in his shirt, her hair still damp from the shower, looking nothing like the woman who commanded boardrooms and toppled competitors, looking instead like someone who still believed in impossible things. "Your father would burn continents to track you down, and Marcus doesn't own you. Doesn't he?" Jeremy moved to the bed, sat on its edge without touching her. "I'm 3 months from closing the Singapore deal. It's everything I've worked for, everything I've built." "And me?" Her voice was barely audible over the rain. "What am I?" "Everything I can't have." She flinched like he'd struck her. Outside, thunder rolled across the city, shaking the old building's bones. "So we go back. Pretend this never happened." "Christine, we put on our armor and we go back to destroying each other in conference rooms instead of hotel rooms." She laughed, but it came out broken. "At least that way we won't have to watch each other give up our dreams. We can just give up each other instead." "It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple, Jeremy. You choose the deal, I choose my father's empire, and we spend the rest of our lives pretending we chose right." She pulled a pillow against her chest like a shield. "But we both know. We'll always know." He reached for her then, pulled her close, breathed in the scent of her shampoo and the rain and the future they were about to incinerate. "What if we regret it? Walking away from each other?" "We will." She pressed her face against his neck. "Every single day. But regret we can live with. Resentment would kill us." The rain fell harder. Outside, the city lights blurred into watercolor streaks. By morning, they were strangers again. By morning, they were enemies. By morning, the war had begun.
The bar was the kind of place where people came to disappear. Dim lighting, corner booths, bartenders who'd forgotten how to ask questions. Christine sat alone, her third whiskey forming rings on the table she didn't bother to wipe away. She didn't hear Jeremy approach, didn't realize he was there until he slid into the booth across from her. "You shouldn't be here," she said, without looking up. "Neither should you. This is 8 blocks from your office. Someone might see." "Let them." She finally met his eyes. "What are you going to do, Jeremy? Report me for day drinking? We're past pretending we care about optics." He signaled the bartender for whatever she was having. They sat in silence until the drink arrived. "I heard about Tokyo," he said finally. "Congratulations, you have sources." "Christine, what do you want me to say? That I'm thrilled? That relocating to the other side of the world to run the Pacific Division is the culmination of everything I've worked for?" She lifted her glass, studied the amber liquid like it held answers. "It's a promotion. Vice President of Global Operations, corner office with a view of Mount Fuji. Everything I should want." "But you don't want it." It wasn't a question. She hated that he could still read her like that, could strip away the armor with a single observation. "I don't want any of this anymore," she said quietly. "The meetings that mean nothing, the victories that feel hollow, the apartment I barely sleep in because work is the only thing that makes me forget how empty my life is." And she laughed, sharp and self-aware. "And now they're offering me Tokyo, like distance will fix what's broken." "You don't have to go." "Of course I do. Turning it down would be career suicide. My father would—" She stopped, shook her head. "It doesn't matter. I'm going. Clean break, new city. Maybe I'll become someone who doesn't check her phone at 2 a.m. hoping for messages that never come." Jeremy's jaw tightened. "Christine." "Don't." She held up a hand. "Don't tell me to stay. Don't tell me we could try again. We both know how that story ends. We wrote it in Paris 10 years ago." What if we were wrong? The question hung between them like smoke. Christine finished her drink, felt the burn all the way down. "Then we live with being wrong, because being right about this would destroy everything we've built, everything we've become." She stood, left money on the table, walked toward the door. This time, Jeremy followed. The parking garage was empty except for their cars and the ghosts of conversations they'd spent 10 years not having. Christine leaned against the concrete pillar, arms crossed, while Jeremy stood 15 feet away, hands in his pockets like that distance could protect them both. "We can't keep doing this," she said. "Meeting in parking garages? I agree. Very film noir." "Jeremy." "I know." He exhaled, watched his breath fog in the cold air. "You leave for Tokyo in 3 weeks. 16 days. The precision hurt more than it should have. He moved closer, not quite closing the gap, but narrowing it. "We should talk about the accounts, the overlapping interests in Singapore. If you're relocating, we need a clean separation of—" "Stop." "Christine." "Just stop." She turned away from him, facing the shadows. "We both know this isn't about Singapore, or accounts, or any of the business we've been hiding behind for a decade." Jeremy moved to stand behind her, close enough to hear her breathing, far enough to maintain the illusion of control. Back to back, their old configuration. Safe, strategic. "Then what is it about?" "Cowardice." Her voice was steady, but he could hear the tremor underneath. "Mine, yours. The fact that we've built empires on the foundation of one decision we made in a hotel room during a rainstorm, and we're both too terrified to admit we might have chosen wrong." The fluorescent lights hummed overhead. Somewhere above them, a car door slammed. Jeremy felt the space between them like a physical thing, inches that might as well have been continents. He could feel the heat of her body, could smell her perfume cutting through the garage's oil and concrete scent. "If I turn around," he said quietly, "everything changes. Everything already changed. We just keep pretending it didn't. His hands clenched in his pockets. Christine, I can't. Then don't. But her voice broke on the word. That's what did it. Not the logic, not the years, not the carefully constructed walls they'd both maintained, just that single crack in her armor, that moment of vulnerability she never showed anyone. Jeremy turned. She was already facing him, tears tracking mascara down her cheeks, looking at him like he was both the answer and the question. We're going to regret this. We already regret everything else. What's one more mistake? He caught her hand, pulled her close, and kissed her like they were still standing in Paris, like the last 10 years had never happened, like tomorrow wasn't coming to destroy them both. They ended up in his car, because hers had security cameras. Jeremy killed the engine and they sat in the darkness, her hand still in his, neither of them willing to let go or willing to acknowledge what letting go would mean. I was there, Christine said finally, when you closed the Berlin deal. I was in the back of the conference room during your press announcement. Jeremy turned to look at her. What? You didn't see me. I made sure of that. But I watched you stand at that podium and talk about innovation and market disruption, and She stopped, swallowed. I was so proud of you I could barely breathe, and I hated myself for it. His grip on her hand tightened. Christine, you earned it. You built something real, something that changed the industry, and all I could think was that I should have been standing next to you, that we should have built it together. She laughed, brittle and sharp. Instead, I went back to my hotel and drafted the proposal that would undercut your Asian expansion, because pride mixed with envy creates some truly impressive spite. The Malaysia contract. I cost you $8 million because I couldn't stand watching you succeed without me. Jeremy was quiet for a long moment. Then, I bought your mother's painting. Christine's head snapped toward him. The Monet? That was you? Anonymous bid. $22 million at Christie's. You were selling it to fund the Sao Paulo acquisition. He stared through the windshield at nothing. I knew what that painting meant to you. Your mother left it to you before she died, and you were liquidating it like it was just another asset, just another piece to move across the board. It was just business. It was you erasing yourself piece by piece to become what your father wanted. His voice was rough. I couldn't watch it, so I bought the painting and put it in storage where you'd never have to see it auctioned off again. Jeremy! I've watched every keynote you've ever given, read every interview, tracked every acquisition like I was studying war strategies instead of watching the woman He stopped himself. I know your assistant's name, your favorite restaurant in Manhattan, the fact that you still take your coffee black with 2 sugars even though you tell everyone you drink it straight. You remember. I remember everything. That's the problem. Christine turned in her seat, studied his profile in the darkness. What are we doing? I don't know, but I'm tired of pretending I don't care if you leave. The first hint of light came like an accusation, bleeding pink and gold across the horizon. Jeremy watched it creep across the dashboard, illuminating Christine's face in degrees. First her profile, then the tears she'd stopped bothering to hide, then the resignation settling into her features like sediment. What time is it? She asked, though they both knew. He checked his watch. 5:15. 45 minutes. The numbers sat between them like a verdict. Christine's phone had been buzzing for the last hour. Her assistant, her driver, probably her father's people making sure she didn't miss her commitment to Tokyo, to duty, to the life she'd built on the ruins of what they could have been. She didn't reach for it. My luggage is already at the airport, she said quietly. Everything I'm taking with me fit into 3 suitcases. 16 years in New York, and it all condensed into 3 suitcases. You could miss the flight. She meant, and what? She turned to him, mascara smudged, armor completely gone. We have breakfast, spend the day pretending we can make this work. By evening, we'd be right back here, except I'd have burned my career and disappointed my father, and we'd still be two people who chose ambition over everything else a decade ago. We were kids then. We were old enough to know better. She touched his face, traced his jawline with fingers that trembled. And we're old enough now to know that some doors close and stay closed, no matter how much we wish otherwise. The sun climbed higher. Birds began their morning chorus in the trees beyond the parking garage, oblivious, cheerful, marking time like it was something ordinary instead of something running out. "I don't want to watch you walk away again," Jeremy said. "Then don't watch. Close your eyes. Drive away first. Let me be the one left behind for once." "Christine, please." Her voice broke completely. "I can't get on that plane if I see your face. I can't spend the next 16 hours over the Pacific knowing you're still here, still waiting, still hoping for something we're both too damaged to build." His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. "Board meeting at 7. Don't be late." The world continuing. Obligations mounting. Reality insisting. Christine saw his screen, saw the message. Something in her expression shuddered closed. "There it is," she said softly. "The thing that's always been bigger than us." She reached for the door handle. "Wait," Jeremy said. But she was already stepping out into the dawn, already walking away, already becoming a silhouette against the rising sun. This time, he let her go. Christine made it 3 steps before Jeremy's voice stopped her. "There's something you need to know." She froze, her back to him, silhouetted against the dawn. "Don't make this harder." "Section 47B of your Tokyo contract." He stepped out of the car, leaving the door open. "The moral turpitude clause." She turned slowly. "What are you talking about?" "I had someone review it, the employment agreement you signed last month." His voice was hollow, factual, the tone of a man delivering evidence he wished didn't exist. Page 93, subsection B. Employee agrees to maintain conduct befitting corporate leadership standards and shall avoid any personal entanglements, relationships, or associations that could constitute conflicts of interest or bring disrepute to the organization. Christine's face went pale. "That's standard language. Every executive contract has—" "Keep reading. Paragraph 4. He pulled out his phone, pulled up the document his lawyer had sent at 3 a.m. "Specifically prohibited relationships include, but are not limited to, romantic or intimate involvement with competitors, rival executives, or individuals whose business interests directly oppose those of the corporation. Violation of this clause constitutes grounds for immediate termination and forfeiture of all compensation, stock options, and severance packages." The words landed like artillery shells. Christine stood motionless, processing. "They know," she whispered. "They suspect. This is insurance. Your father's way of making sure Tokyo keeps you away from—" He couldn't finish. "From you," she laughed, sharp and broken. "My God, they wrote you out of my life in legal language, made loving you a terminable offense. It's worse than that." Jeremy moved closer, stopped just outside touching distance. "Marcus has the same clause in my contracts. I had my lawyer check after I saw yours. He buried it in the renewal I signed 6 months ago. We've both been legally barred from each other, and we didn't even know it." "How much would you lose?" "Everything. The company, my shares, 15 years of equity, gone." He met her eyes. "How much would you lose?" $80 million in stock options, the Tokyo position, my father's legacy." Her voice was barely audible. "Everything I've sacrificed you for." The sun continued rising, indifferent to contracts and clauses and love made illegal by corporate language. "So that's it," Christine said. "We're not just choosing our careers over each other. We're legally obligated to. Unless we walk away from everything." "Could you do that, really? After everything you've built?" Jeremy looked at her, really looked at her, standing in the dawn light, asking him to value her over empires. "I don't know," he said honestly. "Could you?" Neither of them answered. The silence was answer enough. The private terminal was glass and steel, designed for efficient departures. No long goodbyes, no messy emotions, just clean separations and planes that left on time. Jeremy pulled up to the curb as Christine's driver was unloading her luggage. She stood on the sidewalk in her travel clothes, cashmere and silk, armor even in transit, staring at the Gulf Stream waiting on the tarmac like it was a firing squad. He got out of the car. She didn't turn around, but her shoulders tensed. You shouldn't have come. I know. The contract. I don't care about the contract. Now she turned. Her eyes were red-rimmed, exhausted. Jeremy, we can't. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm here because I couldn't let you leave without... He stopped, regrouped. Without you knowing that I tried. That I didn't just let you walk away without fighting. The pilot appeared at the top of the stairs, checking his watch. 2 minutes to departure. Christine looked between Jeremy and the plane, trapped between futures. What do you want me to say? Say you'll remember this. That in 10 years, 20 years, when you're running your empire from Tokyo, you'll remember that I was here, that I chose you, even if you couldn't choose me. That's not fair. None of this is fair. The engines began their pre-flight whine, a mechanical howl that grew louder by the second. The pilot descended the stairs, headed toward them with purpose. Time to go, schedule to keep, no room for hesitation. Miss Chen, he called over the noise, we need to depart. Christine's hand found Jeremy's, squeezed once, hard enough to hurt. I have to go, she said, but didn't move. I know. This doesn't change anything. I know that too. The pilot was closer now, the engine noise building to a roar. 60 seconds, maybe less. Christine released his hand, picked up her carry-on, took 1 step toward the plane, 2 steps. At the base of the stairs, she turned back. Jeremy saw her mouth move, saw her say his name, or maybe goodbye, or maybe something that could have changed everything. But the engines swallowed it completely. She climbed the stairs without looking back, the door sealed shut with hydraulic finality. Jeremy stood on the tarmac, watching the plane taxi away, carrying her toward a life that had no space for him in it. He never knew what she said. He would spend the rest of his life wondering.
Jeremy stood on the tarmac long after the plane became a silver dot against the morning sky, long after the dot disappeared into clouds, long after there was anything left to see. His phone buzzed. Marcus, where are you? Meeting starts in 20. The board meeting, the Singapore expansion, the merger that would make him one of the most powerful men in the industry. Everything he'd worked for, waited for, sacrificed for. He stared at the screen, then at the empty sky. On my way, he typed. The lie felt appropriate. He'd been on his way for 15 years, toward success, toward power, toward a life that looked perfect from the outside and felt hollow at the core. His car was still running, driver's door open, engine humming with patient efficiency. He slid behind the wheel, but didn't shift into drive. Instead, he sat there, hands on the steering wheel, staring at nothing. The airport was waking up around him, other planes arriving, departing, other people making other choices, living other lives. None of them looked particularly happy. None of them looked particularly sad. Just people, moving through the mechanics of existence. His phone lit up again. 3 emails, 2 texts, a calendar reminder about the quarterly review. The world continuing to demand pieces of him. He'd built an empire, started with nothing, a scholarship kid from Cleveland with more ambition than sense, and turned himself into someone who moved markets with a single decision. He had the corner office, the summer house in the Hamptons, the respect of people who mattered. He had everything except the one thing that would have made any of it mean something. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd spent 10 years proving he'd made the right choice in Paris. Every deal closed, every competitor crushed, every quarterly report, all evidence that he'd chosen correctly. That ambition mattered more than love. That success was the only thing worth sacrificing for. And now, watching the contrail of Christine's plane dissolve into atmosphere, he finally understood what too late actually meant. It wasn't that he'd missed his chance. It was that he'd had his chance, had held it in his hands in a hotel room during a rainstorm, and he'd deliberately let it go. You couldn't be late to something you'd chosen to miss. Jeremy put the car in drive, merged onto the highway, headed toward the office and the meeting and the life he'd built on the foundation of her absence. He arrived exactly on time. He always did. Thanks for watching till the end. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. More stories are coming, and you won't want to miss the next one. I'll see you in next story.